The shadow in the mirror. It was past midnight when Isha first noticed the shadow in the mirror. She was alone in her apartment, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock her only company. She had just finished her late night work and was heading to the bathroom when she caught a glimpse of something unusual. As she passed the hallway mirror, she stopped. Her reflection was slightly off, not by much, just enough to make her heart skip a beat. It wasn't that her posture was wrong or that the lighting was bad. No, it was more unsettling. In the mirror, her reflection wasn't moving exactly like she was. She stood still for a moment, watching her mirrored self adjust her posture. Her reflection, however, seemed to smile just a little. Isha quickly dismissed it as tiredness. I am just imagining things, she muttered to herself. But as she turned away from the mirror, she felt a chill. The reflection in the glass she couldn't sworn did not turn with her. The next day, Isha couldn't shake the unease she had felt the night before. It was an ordinary Saturday, but every time she glanced at a reflective surface, whether a window, glass, or mirror, she felt a tightness in her chest. At work, she noticed the same strange sensation in the office bathroom. As she looked at her reflection while washing her hands, her image lingered a second longer than it should have before blinking. She shook her head. It's nothing, just a trick of the light. But deep down, Isha knew it wasn't. The feeling of being watched, of being not quite alone, followed her through the day. That evening after dinner, she decided to take a walk to clear her mind. She hoped the fresh air would help her relax. As she strolled down the street, the dim glow of street lamps made the world around her appear eerily still. That's when she saw it. In the shop window, her reflection was moving independently of her. It was smiling, wide, unsettling, like something out of a nightmare. She spun around, but there was no one behind her. Her heart raced. This is crazy, she whispered to herself, trying to steady her breath. She quickly walked home, eager to escape the suffocating feeling that had taken over her. That night, Isha stayed awake, tossing and turning in bed. Every time she closed her eyes, the image of that sinister reflection haunted her. She couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop seeing the eyes that had not been hers staring back at her from the mirror. Around 2 a.m., she heard it, a soft whisper as if someone was calling her name, Isha. She froze, her body going rigid. It was a woman's voice, breathless, almost pleading. Isha, the voice repeated, this time closer. Her pulse quickened. She couldn't tell if it was real or just a product of her fatigue. Slowly, she pushed herself up and swung her legs off the bed. Her feet touched the cold wooden floor and she cautiously stood up. The whisper seemed to come from her bathroom mirror, the one she had passed earlier in the evening. Her heart pounded in her chest as she slowly approached the door. When she opened it, she saw nothing but the dull reflection of her own face. I am imagining things, she muttered. It's all in my head. But as she turned to leave, the voice spoke again, this time louder, clearer. Help me. Her blood ran cold. She turned around, her breath catching in her throat. Her reflection in the mirror wasn't hers anymore. It was another woman's face. The woman in the mirror looked terrified, her eyes wide with fear. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Isha stepped forward, her mind racing. Who are you? She whispered, her voice barely audible. The woman's reflection opened her mouth, but still no sound came. With a sudden movement, her hand reached out toward Isha. Isha recoiled, stepping back. The reflection followed her movements, but the woman's hand was now reaching out of the mirror, inches from Isha's face. In a panic, Isha backed into the wall, her breath shallow. She scrambled for her phone, dialing some number, but before she could speak, the woman's hand gripping her wrist, icy cold like death itself. Help me, Isha, the voice whispered again, but this time it was unmistakably coming from behind her. Isha spun around, her heart hammering in her chest, but there was no one there. The voice was no longer in the mirror, it was inside her own head. Isha's mind was reeling. She couldn't make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of hallucination? But as the woman's cold fingers tightened around her wrist, Isha realized something. This was no dream. With a sudden, desperate push, Isha pulled her hand free and ran toward the front door, stumbling over her own feet. She couldn't stay in the apartment. She couldn't breathe. Whatever was in the mirror still following her every move. She burst through the front door, gasping for air as she stepped out into the cold night. But when she looked back at her apartment's window, there, the woman staring at her from inside the dark apartment, smiling, her eyes empty. It was then that Isha understood. The woman in the mirror wasn't a stranger at all, it was her. As Isha looked at the reflection of the woman in the windows, she saw a flash of memory, her own face staring back from the glass of a hospital window. Years ago, she had been in a coma after a car accident. The reflection was Isha's own trapped soul, still tied to the apartment she had once lived in, but now forever detached from her body. The woman in the mirror was not trying to hurt her. She was trying to warn her, trying to reach out before it was too late. The cold, malevolent presence wasn't just the reflection anymore. It was Isha's past trying to reclaim what had once been hers. Moral of the story. Sometimes the shadows in the mirror are more than mere reflections. They are remnants of our forgotten past haunting us, waiting to be discovered. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe.